Hi, we're going to start today with lesson 1-1, undefined terms of geometry. So it's a weird idea to think about when we define words. We usually use other words to help define it. So when we start with geometry, we have to have a starting point. And those three words are point, line, and plane. Those are considered the undefined terms of geometry because they can't be defined with words that we've already defined. So everything we do within this class, we justify it. And we have to start somewhere. And so point, line, and plane is where we're going to start. And we're going to describe them, but there's not a technical definition. But we can use a point, line, and plane to help us define other words. So, moving on, we're going to first talk about a point. A point, when we're talking in geometry, this is a location. It has 0 dimensions. It's like on a map of the school, you would say the cafeteria, that's a point. Or on a different map, Indiana, that's a location, that's a point. Now, that location can change in size, right? So when we draw this in geometry class, it's a dot. Now the dot doesn't have to have a certain size. You can just put a little tiny dot, but next to it's important that you put a capital letter, and that describes where the spot is located. So this is point A, point B, and point P. Notice the P, the dot is larger, and that's okay. Those are 3 points. So again, it's drawn as a dot, it's a capital letter. Now, down here, it does show that you can write the word point, and you can write the word point, but mathematicians are lazy and we don't want to write the word point every time. So that's why we usually put the dot, and that's more for drawing as well. Now, let's move on to a line. A line is created by having 2 points, and you connect them. So as long as you have 2 points, you can draw a line. Now with the line, it is very important that you put these little arrows at the end. Without the arrows, it is not a line, it is a segment, and we'll get to those later. So when you name a line, you take any 2 points on that line and you put those 2 letters. So for instance, here there's an A and a B, so you can call this line AB, and you have to put a line with arrows on top, or you can write it backwards, BA. And those are the most common ways to write it. Now, let's say I had a point C on here. And notice they don't have to be equally spaced. They're just points on a line. Again, you would name it with 2 points. So that would be like line BC. But I'm sure you see there's other combinations. You could say line AC. You could flip these letters and say CB, CA. So there's lots of combinations as points, as there's more points on the line. Now again, mathematicians are lazy. So this is a lowercase cursive L. It kind of looks like a cursive E. So that's another way we can name a line. You could just name it as line L. And so when you draw it down here, notice it is cursive. And that's important because if you did a capital L, and I'll do it wrong. If I do a capital L, that would indicate that's a point. And L is not a point, L is a line. So I'm going to erase that. Okay, so now it is one-dimensional, and you can draw a line anytime you have 2 points. So if I put a point on your desk and a point on my house, would that draw a line? And you would say yes, because any 2 points draw a line, right? So if I put a point like on your head and a point on a friend's head, could you draw a line? Sure, because those are 2 points. Now, we get into something a little different here with planes because it's actually 3 points. So I'm getting ahead of myself. A plane is 2-dimensional. And when we draw it, well, in real life, a plane goes forever. It doesn't have borders. It doesn't have a defined edge. But when you draw it, notice it looks like a parallelogram. And when I draw mine, I usually draw my parallelogram this way, but either way works. And within that plane, notice it goes forever, but we don't draw little arrows. You just have to know a plane goes forever. So if a question ever comes up, does your plane stop at that line? You would say absolutely not. That plane goes on forever. Now within that plane, you have points and lines. Now, can you have lines without points? And you say no. So I'm going to put a bunch of points on here. Now these points are not going to be in a straight line necessarily, because when you name them, they have to be like scattered, not in a straight line. So for this one, I could call this plane ABC, but you know what? You can go in any order. You could say BAC. Does C have to go last? Of course not. You can say CAB. If you want to try to spell a word, you can, like cab, so there's lots and lots of combinations. So when you're answering a question, notice you could have an answer and your friend could have a different answer. Now, mathematicians like to do lazy things. So if there's a big capital cursive letter up in the corner, like a big capital A, you could just say, hey, this is plane A. Now, keep in mind, I'll do it A that way. Mathematicians are lazy, so we don't want to write the word plane. So if you just see a big cursive capital A, you know that has to represent a plane. So to recap, if you see like X, Y, Z with capitals in between, or with commas in between, that means those are points. That's the same thing as saying point X, point Y. You notice those are capital, and point capital Z. Now, whenever you get to a line, I could do XY with a line on top. Technically, you could write line XY. If you want to flip them and say YX, you could. Now, when I get to a plane, I could say XYZ. Notice there's no commas in between. Or you could say plane XYZ. Those letters could be in any order. They don't have to be in alphabetical order. A point has 0 dimension because it's location. A line is 1-dimensional, and a plane is 2-dimensional. Now, if you think about it, if I were to draw a cube, which don't make fun of that, okay. If I said, what dimension is that? I think everyone would know that is 3-dimensional. So work backwards. One side of this plane is 2-dimensional. And then when you have a plane, if you have one side of that, that's a line. And what's on a line? That is a point. So you can work backwards and try to memorize that. Okay, so our first official definition is the word collinear. Now the word co means together. If you think about, you've heard of the word coworker, that means workers that are together. And then you see the word line. So let's kind of put this together. They are points on the line. So it's easy to remember. Now, if you see the word not in front of a word, it means like the not of it. So this means not on a single line. So collinear, if you look at these 3 points, you can draw a line that contains them all. But if I were to draw A, B, and C like this, is there one line that would contain them all? And you would say, of course not. So these are words we're going to use all year. So try to make a list of all your vocabulary words on your theorem sheet, and that will help you as we go on. All right, line segment, next vocab word. It is part of a line bounded by 2 segments. Okay, so this can be measured. Whenever we do lines, you can't measure it because it doesn't stop. It goes on forever. And no, technically you can measure it from like the end to the end, but the arrows mean it goes forever, so there's not technically an end. A line segment. Okay, so a line segment looks like this, and there's some letters on it, and I know I use ABC a lot, but that's okay. You can use any letter we like. You name it by the end points. So this would be line segment AD. And you would write those as capital because they are points, and you put a segment on top. Now, if I was looking at this and I just wanted to reference this little bit, and you would just use the endpoints. You see this little segment is BC, and oops, I put arrows. Or you can flip it around and say CP. All right, so that's a line segment. It's part of a line. So when you look at this picture, there are actually lots of little segments. So you have a segment here, in the middle, at the end, and then you can combine them like A to C. So you have to start looking at pictures differently. List all the points, lines, and planes in the picture below. For the lines come up with okay. So can you name the plane WXY? All right, so let's look at the points. WXY. Now, this is meant to be tricky because you would probably say, okay, I need the points not to be in a straight line, and they're not in a straight line, but W is not in the plane. But does that plane stop? A plane never stops. So technically, doesn't this plane go forever and ever? So is there really an edge on the plane like the picture appears? Hopefully you're saying no, there's not. So is W technically in the plane? And I hope you're thinking, yes, W is in the plane. So can you name it WXY? Yes, of course you can. Yes. And why? Because they are, let's use our vocabulary words, they are non-collinear, and they're all three in the plane. So they are non-collinear, and they're contained within the plane. Okay, moving on. Can you name a plane ACD? So, are they on the plane? They're in the plane, but are they non-collinear? No, they're not. So we're going to say a big no because they are collinear. All right. Next vocab word, concurrent. So this definition is just, it's lines that all contain the same point. So if I have a point, how can I draw two lines that go through that point? Let me make that point a little bigger. So I could draw one this way, and this could be line L. And I could go one this way, which is M. Notice they're cursive. And one this way. That's line N. So are those lines concurrent? Yes, they all contain the same point. So this point is actually called the point of concurrency. There you go. And so a lot of people like to get this definition confused and say it's a point that goes through, a point with lines that go through it. And that's not technically the same. That's the point of concurrency. Okay? To clear that up. Now, let's break this down. You know what that means, together. And this word looks like the word plane, and that's exactly what it is. It's points that lie in one plane. Okay, now again, this gets tricky because these sides of the plane, do they technically stop? No, they go forever. So just like the problem up above here, is W technically coplanar? And you're going to say yes. So how do you draw something non-coplanar? So what's non-coplanar? Remember, what's non? Not. So points that don't lie in the same plane. All right, so how do you draw it? Can I draw it like this? No, because we already discussed W is in the plane. So think of a piece of paper. If I were going to take a piece of paper and stab a pencil through it, the paper could be the plane, the pencil could be the line. We need to know how to draw that. And so if I just draw it like this and put the line on it, that's not right because that looks like the line is in the plane. So the way we would draw it is like this picture I'm showing you here. You have the plane, and then we have to kind of like 3D show this line going through it. So it goes to the plane, it comes out the bottom. If you want to do the little dashes, you can. So if I wanted to draw 3 points and one of the points not in the plane, I would have to do something like this: A, B, and then down here, C. If I were to remove that line and just go A, B, C, do you guys see the difference? On the second picture, you could extend the plane because the planes go forever and C is in the plane. But on the first picture, it's pretty obvious. C is below the plane. All right, so before we do this next problem, let's look at this image. Now, cursive P, it didn't look very cursive, so I made it a different P. So big capital cursive P, that means the plane. So this is plane P. Lowercase m, that means that's a line. That is not a point. I see another lowercase letter L. That is a line, not a point. And I see a bunch of capital letters, and those are all points. Okay, so let's go through this. What are 2 other ways to name QT? All right, so that's this line. Let's do the cheater way, lowercase cursive m. And I could just switch the letters and say TQ. Put the line on top. And no, you could use N. So N and then some other letter. NQ. Could you say NM? What do you guys think? Does that work? No, because M is not a point. M is the name of the line, so that is wrong. Name 2 other ways to name plane P. Okay. So, technically, we need 3 points that are not in a line, and the vocab word is non-collinear. 3 non-collinear. All right, so we got to get used to these vocab words. We're going to use them all the time. So, let's start with V. So, V, R, S. Now, could those be in any order? And absolutely. You can just start scrambling these around. And if you want to get your answers this way, you can. If you want to name it a different way, can you use N or T? And I hope you're saying no, because they are not in the plane. Now, I didn't use Q at all. Could I use Q? Of course. Could I say QRS? Again, I hope you're saying no, because those are collinear and we need non-collinear. So I would have to put a V there to make it work. And I have more than 2, so I'm going to move on. Just realize there's lots of answers. What are other ways? What are the names of the 3 collinear points? Okay, so we just talked about it. It's highlighted. The 3 collinear points are R, Q, and S. Now, remember, these are 3 separate things, so put commas in between them. What are the names of the 4 coplanar? So coplanar means together in the plane. So I would have to now include the V. So R, Q, S, and V. Let's keep going. What are the other ways to name RS? So there's line RS. I'm trying to erase the other line. There we go. Underline the correct way. Okay, so is RS a line or a segment? Well, the arrows tell me that is a line. Circle the points that are on RS. Okay, so N, no. P, no, that's the plane. Q, yes. R, yes. S, yes. T, no, that's above the plane. And V, no, that's in the plane but not on the line. Cross out the lines that do not name RS. So NQ, no. NT, no. PV, no. QR, yes. QS, yes. RQ, yes. SQ, yes. RSR, yes. Hope I did all that right. Okay. So your assignment is going to be 1.1 online assignment. It's on Canvas under modules. It's multiple choice and you have unlimited attempts. And next class, we're just going to take questions. So don't stress it if it doesn't work out the way you think it should work out. I will answer questions on Canvas if you want to message me, if you want to message me on Remind. I'm also going to have you do this undefined terms assignment. And this just helps you look at your surroundings and visualize points, lines, and planes. So you need to think about a math class. Now you need a theme. My theme was math class. What is flat? You look around. I mean, technically the walls, that could represent a plane. I realize they don't go forever, but in our world, I mean, we don't really have a good example of a plane. You could look at the ceiling. You could look at the hallway. And when you think of a line, now our line's going to be more like a segment, but we need straight where you can put multiple points on it. I chose a ruler. Other things in the classroom is like the chalk ledge on the chalkboard. You could, look at a pencil. You could look at maybe the lines on the ceiling, like the little support bars. Those are all examples of lines that could potentially go forever. Now we need a point, a location. So I chose a compass. The ending, as you can see here, I drew an arrow. That is a location. It kind of looks like a segment here to me. So, that's not straight at all. And so like the ending was the point. And that's another way to think about it. So in years past, a lot of people maybe chose basketball. So what could be the plane? Well, that could be the floor, right? The gym floor. What could be a line? Well, there's lots of lines on the floor. You can choose that. And a point. Again, there's lots of choices you could, but the easiest to me, because it's a circle, is the ball. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a picture, and you can copy and paste these off the internet, and you're going to explain here how the picture fits the term. Okay, so you're going to say, explain the term in your own words, and then how it fits. So there's not a definition for a line. So you're going to just explain to me what you think a line is. Okay, and then you're going to tell me how the picture fits the explanation you just gave. So there's going to be at least 2 sentences for 3 pictures. So you're writing 6 sentences total. Okay, and if you have questions, message me. I don't want to give too much detail here because in the past people just steal my ideas and write down my exact words. So try not to use a football field, and do not use, you can use a math class, just don't use the 3 pictures that I chose. And you can do basketball if you'd rather do basketball instead of football. So that's pretty much it. Good luck. Message me when you have questions, and I'll see you in class soon.